So why are we broadcasting from here this week? Saturday, June 24th is Prince Hall Day. Prince Hall was an extraordinary 18th century man of many talents, and he put those talents to the test when African Americans and other people of color were marginalized long before and long after we became a nation. The town of Arlington will celebrate this American abolitionist and founder of the Black Freemasons, after whom this cemetery at 52 Gardner Street, Arlington, is named. On Saturday, June 24th, Arlington's Historical Society is set to host a talk on Mr. Hall by AHS's Rosemarie Smurzynski. This forum takes place at 7 p.m. at the Arlington Masonic Temple at 19 Academy Street. Prince Hall was a fierce advocate for the freedom of enslaved people in the mid-18th century. He originated the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Freemasons in 1775 as a community base for Black Americans. Arlington's Prince Hall Cemetery stands as one of the only remaining African American Masonic grave sites in the country. At a time when Black Americans had no land to bury their loved ones, the Prince Hall Cemetery was put in trust to lay them to rest. Earlier this week, we talked to Arlington historian Michael Ruderman about a great man who made his mark on Arlington's history.
He was a singular man of his time, and he devoted his life really to the cause of lifting up his community. And Freemasonry spoke to him for all that those ideals represented. This is the Prince Hall Cemetery, and to me it represents a real success story. It memorializes a rare individual, Prince Hall, who was a free African American man in Boston at the time of the American Revolution. He was probably the most well-known and definitely the leader of the African American community in Boston. He was a businessman, worked in leather. He had been born in Barbados and came to Boston either as an indentured servant, maybe enslaved. We don't really know, but he clearly was a free person of color in the city during those years. And he was an abolitionist. Not the way we think of abolitionists in the 19th century, but he clearly was an abolitionist in the 18th century, promoting the causes of African Americans and urging them to do the things that would better the community, themselves and others, to gain respect and bring more interest to their cause of freedom and equality through self-betterment and service to the community. And that's what led him to get interested in becoming a Mason, because they share so many of the same ideals there. He brought together 14 others, and they petitioned the local lodge in Boston, which turned them down. They would not have African Americans as members, but eventually they did get accepted, I believe, by an Irish lodge that was attached to one of the regiments of the army, of the Royal Army in Boston. Prince Hall lived until 1807. He's buried in Boston on Copp's Hill. The lodge that he founded as first master survived him. It was named for him about 40 years later. About the time of the Civil War, one of the members of that lodge, who already owned this plot here in Arlington, sold it to the lodge in trust for the burial of the members of the lodge. So this started out as a burial ground about the 1860s, maybe 1864, 5, 6, the first internments. And it was used by the members of the lodge for several decades after that. It's hard to tell, but as you can see, there really are no grave markers here anymore. The grave markers have vanished. It seems like the very last internments were very, very early in the 20th century, and they've vanished since then. In fact, for years, this was practically an unidentified lot in the town's land records. People in the neighborhood called it, that old burying place. Various property developers wanted to try to buy it. Someone actually did make an effort in the 50s to purchase it, but the lodge was persuaded to retain it, even though they weren't using it and hadn't been using it for maybe 30 years at that point. It's the 1980s when the Arlington Historical Society took an interest in documenting what happened here and trying to restore some of its presence and dignity as a burying place. And in cooperation with the members of the Prince Hall, now Grand Lodge, in Dorchester, they've worked cooperatively since then to fund the cleanup, the fencing, the renovations here, and principally the large granite memorial that you see right behind me.
After Hall's passing in 1807, the lodge and this hallowed ground was almost erased from history until Arlington's Historical Society rediscovered it with the help of the Prince Hall Masonic Lodge in Dorchester. It's now revitalized as the Prince Hall Arlington Cemetery Association and was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1998. And again, the Prince Hall Forum is set to take place Saturday, June 24th at 7 p.m. at the Arlington Masonic Temple at 19 ACMi Street.